On May 25th, George Floyd, a Minneapolis man who grew up in Houston, Texas, died after a confrontation with police that ended with a video millions around the globe have seen, with an officer's knee on Floyd's neck and 3 officers standing nearby for nearly 9 minutes. What followed that were protests around the world, country, and here in Massachusetts. You've seen the protests in places like Philadelphia, New York, Boston, and Brockton. With all the negative that we have seen good. In most of the protests with thousands of people, government officials and police officers have been there standing with those protesters, showing support and starting conversations. Locally, the Bridgewater Citizens for Civility and Respect held a standout. The purpose of this was to raise awareness to racism and stand up for justice. Over 100 people took part in the standout on May 30th with signs and receiving positive feedback from most drivers in the comment. I had a chance to get in contact with some of the BCCR members to get their feedback on holding a peaceful standout over the few demonstrations that were mentioned that have gained a lot of attention in the news. This is from Beryl Domingo, who said, "We must recognize that racism has been around for a few centuries in this country. It is not new, and despite efforts by many over the years to change this culture of racial injustice, it still continues to this day. Demonstrating our stand against racism is important, especially at a time like this, when we all watch with horror as the life of George Floyd was choked out of him with the knee of a police officer. We have to understand the fear and frustration experienced by Black and Brown communities whose residents are often targeted and harmed by police. These criminal acts by officers of the law whose job it is to serve and protect must not go unpunished. But as history has shown, more often than not, justice is not served and people continue to be killed or harmed with impunity. Peaceful demonstrations are important to get people to pay attention, but if this is the only way to get our political leaders to listen, then we would have solved many problems by now. Unfortunately, after a few weeks of peaceful protesting, everyone goes back home and nothing changes. We need more than just peaceful marching. BCCR does not condone violence, but we know that simply standing out with signs is not enough. We need to vote for people who will change the criminal justice system. We will approach our political leaders, our police and fire chiefs and superintendents to have meaningful conversations about race in our community." Beryl's husband Vernon hoped that these standouts would start conversations between people when seeing the messages on a signboard, and whether they agree or not, start a dialogue. Also, starting a discussion at the dinner table about issues like this could come from seeing one of these standouts. Vernon said that they feel happy when a young person is in a car and goes by and the child asks what the standout is about. Fellow BCCR member Sam Baumgarten had this to say, "It has been a pattern for BCCR to stand up when hateful incidents have occurred, both locally and nationally. Clearly, the death of George Floyd and the ongoing systemic racism which led to that incident called for a statement to be made with regard to ending racism and in support of the Floyd family. We focus on staying positive and not responding to any criticism that might be shouted from a passing vehicle. 99% of the responses were positive." That initial standout was on May 30th. There was another one held 2 days later, this one organized by high school students. Rachel Macefield and Rachel Groh put this standout on social media and had more than 50 people take part on a weekday afternoon with only hours' notice. Both standouts were extremely peaceful. Regarding this standout, the reaction from the BCCR was extremely positive. Sam said it was very encouraging to see a multicultural, multi-age group of folks taking part in the standout on Saturday, and then a group of high school, college-age residents calling for the standout on Monday. If change is going to occur, it will need the collective effort, again involving young and old, all races and ethnic groups, community leaders, and educators. Beryl added, "Seeing young people and children on the common showing their support for racial justice, calling out the negative effect of white silence on race, and standing up against police brutality of Black and Brown people is a wonderful sight in Bridgewater. It means they get what racism is about. It gives me hope that this generation will work for change in our culture, will work to eradicate racism whenever and wherever they see it, until all people regardless of the color of their skin are treated equally and fairly. To me, it means there are parents who teach their children well. We, being the BCCR, believe it is so important that parents speak to their children about race and to have those conversations on a regular basis, not just when there are incidents posted on social media. We also believe school superintendents, school committees, and teachers need to make every effort to give children a multicultural, anti-racist educational experience that informs them of the racial history of this country and ensure diverse representation in textbooks and class presentations. As protests and standouts continue to happen, Vernon encourages people to join and stand with the BCCR as they advocate for peace and justice. The honking of encouragement is good for the morale and also starts a feeling of contagion as other drivers feel that they are not alone in how they view the world. As you saw, people of all ages were at the standouts in Bridgewater as well as others across the country. In the Common during the standout on May 30th, a list of names were written. Names that you've seen in the news and lives taken far too early for reasons comparable to Mr. Floyd. Those names that you're reading were written by a middle school student here in Bridgewater, and a sign that the future is indeed watching. Bridgewater Police Chief Chris Del Monte, along with the men and women of the police department, denounced the actions of the officers in Minnesota and supported peaceful protests and standouts like the two in Bridgewater that were mentioned. In part, the statement from the BPD reads, "Our deepest sympathies and condolences to the family of Mr. Floyd. We are angry and sickened by the heinous crime and how it was carried out against another human being. Those responsible must be held accountable, and we must do everything possible as a nation to ensure it never happens again. As police officers, our foremost responsibility is to serve and protect all people in our community. We are in the integrity business, and this tragedy is at the heart of all we do. We are and should be held to the highest standards of honor and integrity, with the greatest appreciation for the sanctity of human life. We work every day to build trust and earn the confidence of the people we serve, demonstrated by our respect and compassion for all. We strongly support the voices calling for justice peacefully, demonstrating around the nation, including here in Bridgewater. We are sworn to uphold, protect, and defend everyone's rights and power to freely express their outrage over this incident and anger and disgust that we share. We also have a duty and responsibility to pursue and prosecute those who seek to interfere with a person's inalienable right to peacefully protest as an opportunity to damage property and harm others." The statement goes on to read, "Officers of the Bridgewater Police Department receive regular in-service training and have received advanced training on the use of force, integrating communication, assessment, and tactics, mental health, fair and impartial policing, and procedural justice and legitimacy." Welcome to this edition of the program. I'm John Luck. Bridgewater State University has launched an investigation after a photo surfaced that purportedly showed a student using a racial slur. You can see the picture and the student wearing blackface with a caption. BSU President Fred Clark released the statement a short time after the photo made the social media rounds. In part, the message reads, "During this national crisis, when we are all coming together in solidarity to remind the nation that Black Lives Matter, such a message only exacerbates the pain and anger we are already feeling. I want to express my gratitude to members of our community for alerting us to this racist post. We heard your voices loud and clear. We have been in contact with the student and the student's family. Our Office of Community Standards and our Office of Equal Opportunity is investigating to verify the validity of all elements in the image, including the text, and will be addressing this matter promptly. We are committed to the values expressed in the university's official value statement and to the principles of social justice. We must do better, and we will do better." And shortly after that announcement from President Clark, a statement was released on social media that says that student is no longer a member of the BSU community. In that short statement, it reads that federal law prohibits universities from publicly discussing details involving individual students. But President Clark adds that he believes the outcome of this case was just and necessary. Turning to local news regarding the coronavirus pandemic, which continues to have a limited local impact, with between 30 and 40 active cases as of this taping and 2 deaths attributed to COVID-19. While there are those that have tested positive for the virus, there are also those that may have been in contact with somebody that tested positive and they don't know it. That's where the state's contact tracing program comes into play. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker held a press conference that discussed the need for people to pick up phone calls from that program. Baker said that he believes the contact tracing program is a key element to stopping the spread of the coronavirus and could be important in pointing out future hotspots for COVID-19.
Please pick up the phone. We'll continue to do all we can at the state level to push back against this insidious disease, but this is your chance to be part of the fight against the virus and to help us all get back to a new normal and contain the disease. We're counting on all of you at home to do your part here and to answer that call.
The state recently released a video to help residents reduce the spread of COVID-19. All they have to do is pick up the phone.
People in Massachusetts are asking what they can do to help stop the spread of the virus. Our response? Answer the call.
Hello? Thanks for calling. I've been worried.
Thanks. Now I know what to do.
Through what's called contact tracing, the MA COVID team will be reaching out to everyone who's tested positive for coronavirus or who has been exposed. Look out for area codes 833 or 857 and answer the call to keep your community safe. Visit mass.gov/MA tracing team.
All right, so again, the numbers to look out for if you do get a phone call from this contact tracing program is 833 or 857 with the caller ID name MA COVID Team. I mentioned earlier that the numbers for active cases of coronavirus here in Bridgewater are relatively low compared to other cities and towns here in the Bay State. Through May 28th, there were 345 cases of COVID-19 altogether since the start of the virus, with over 3,300 people tested. Bridgewater's number of those tested is 39th in Massachusetts. Those numbers come from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the town of Bridgewater points out that those numbers are combined between residents and those inside the correctional facility here in town. With those numbers originally rising at a decent clip, Town Manager Michael Dutton warned the Town Council that we may see higher case numbers with that increased testing at the facility.
The state reporting, which we base some of our figures off of, the state reporting includes some, but not all of the DOC-related cases. The DOC complex is undergoing several days of comprehensive testing, so I think the objective is in several of the facilities to test everyone. So that's quite a task, but I am fairly confident that we'll see fairly significant increases in the number of cases. Very likely non-symptomatic cases, so folks that have this that have no idea they have it, but regardless are infected. So we obviously know of the cases where there are symptoms at the DOC because the ambulance will get called under certain circumstances, under certain protocols, but from what it appears, the way it appears now is that there are a significant number of cases there, but on the community side, which is obviously for our purposes and our needs, it's more important. We do have 50. We've seen some leveling off in the last several days, so that's a good sign.
CVS pharmacies have begun testing for COVID-19 at some of their locations, and that includes in Rainham and right here in Bridgewater. According to the pharmacy, these tests will be self-tests with CVS pharmacy members watching the test be administered. There are now close to 30 locations taking part, and the tests are by appointment only, and you can register for one. Follow the link at the bottom of your screen for more information. This pandemic has been a major historical event that has seen countries shut down and our everyday lives changed somehow. The Old Bridgewater Historical Society is seeking essays, poems, photographs, and more for collection and preservation. These submissions should relate to how this pandemic is affecting you and what you're doing to stay sane, and also what you think life after this will be like. This isn't a contest, there are no prizes or awards, however some submissions may be posted online and on social media. This is open to all ages, and you are asked to avoid politics and use no profanity. You are also asked to keep written submissions to one tight page. You can send your accounts of this pandemic to submissions@oldbridgewater.org. We have other stories to get to, and we'll get to those coming up after the break, including a popular summertime tradition undergoing a big change this year. I also talked with the town clerk about the upcoming election and ways to vote, plus the other part of her job, which is important for married couples. Before we go to break, the annual Memorial Day ceremony as we know it didn't take place this year in an effort to keep everyone healthy and safe during the pandemic. Instead of a big ceremony, there was a small one with town councilors standing in the common wearing masks. Town Councilor Frank Sousa and Council President Dennis Gallagher placed a wreath in front of a monument with local names on it of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice fighting for our freedom.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
A contract for demolition of the Mitchell School has been signed. Town Manager Michael Dutton told councilors at the May 19th meeting that the bid came in a little less than half of what was budgeted. Town Councilor Tim Fitzgibbons asked the town manager why there was such a big gap between the estimate and the actual amount.
The reason it came in, we don't know precisely the reason. My guess is a combination of two things. One is that the concrete slab, they're choosing to leave the portions of the concrete slab in place for staging purposes and also to prevent any erosion during the period between when the school is torn down and when the new foundation begins. So that slab is probably, demolition of that is probably about $150,000 proposition. So there may have been a significant savings there.
And that slab, according to Mr. Dutton, will be demolished at a later date but won't be moved. Instead, it will be used as fill. These savings will appear in the project until the general bids are opened and then accepted, and at that point it will be clear whether the money can be saved on the project or if the saving will have to be filed into the new building. A reminder that you can watch council meetings on Channel 22 or on demand anytime at btvaccess.com. The annual town election is set to take place on June 27th with shorter voting hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. out of safety for both voters and poll workers. There are other ways to vote in the election, including by absentee ballot and early vote ballot. Here's Town Clerk Marilee Hunt with more information.
I think most people know that usually when you get an absentee ballot, you have to say on it, what is your excuse? Why do you need an absentee ballot? Why aren't you able to go to the polls? And usually that's that you have a disability, you're in the hospital, you're confined, or you're going to be out of town for that day. But that's been extended by the governor and the legislature. They have added the excuse of having the COVID-19 virus or being afraid of it or concerned about it. So that pretty much covers everybody. And you can have an absentee ballot for that. That excuse is not printed on the absentee ballot form, but it is a valid reason. We will give absentee ballots to anyone for that reason. Early vote by mail does not mean that you're coming into the office or anything like that. It means that you can get what they call an EV ballot, early vote ballot. You need no excuse for that. The application form is a little bit shorter, and it can be brought to the polls on election day or turned into us anytime before that in the drop box or by mail. So it really has no excuses attached to it. It's just early voting, but you're early voting by mail. And that's a little different than the absentee ballot. The absentee ballot can be brought to the polls on election day, but not by the voter, because the voter has said that he or she is not able to come. But the early vote ballot can actually be brought in on election day by the voter, him or herself.
For more information on getting an absentee or early vote ballot, visit bridgewaterma.org/vote. As mentioned on the Bridgewater Now updates, there is only one contested race, and that is for the District 6 council seat between Mark Lindy and Bill Wood. In District 3, Councilor Sean George is running unopposed. Meanwhile, in District 5, there is nobody on the ballot, leaving a write-in campaign potential for the District 5 council seat. The remaining districts in town can still vote on uncontested races, including a Bridgewater and Rainham seat on the BR School Committee, and only one name is on the Public Library Trustees, which voters are typically supposed to select 3. One of the other items that Mrs. Hunt and myself discussed was about marriage licenses, which are signed off by the town clerk, who also serves as Justice of the Peace. With restrictions on big ceremonies taking place, couples that want to get married still do have an option.
Oftentimes people when you get a marriage license, it's only good for 60 days. So people wouldn't have gotten marriage licenses really before March when we closed down if they were going to be having a April-June wedding. So a lot of people are coming to get their marriage licenses, and some of them want to get married. You know, everything's canceled, and so they want to get married. I am a Justice of the Peace, and I do marry people. So we've been doing quite a bit of business with that. There are not a lot of town clerk's offices that are still offering to do marriage intentions, because that requires a face-to-face meeting. The couple needs to come in person and show. So we wrote a protocol early on, and the assistant town clerk, Jolie Sprague Martin, goes with gloves to the parking lot and takes the papers out to the couple that don't have to get out of their car. They stay with their mask and gloves. They bring their own pens in, and they fill out the paperwork, hand it back to her, put their check with it underneath the paperwork, and she takes it back and decontaminates everything in the office and types up their marriage license. And there's a 3-day waiting period, and we can either send them their marriage license, or if I'm marrying them, the license stays right in the office. I make it sound all happy. Most of it is happy, but there are many people too. Let's remember, this isn't a frivolous thing we're doing. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and if they were living together or something like that and aren't married, it might mean that they're without insurance, that one of the parties is without insurance. So people are getting married for that reason. We've also had people say that they're being hospitalized for something other than COVID, and it's a life-threatening thing, and they want to be married before that happens. So, we're trying to be responsive to the public needs and make sure that people can get married when they want to.
The pictures that you were looking at in that video are a couple from Attleboro who were married and came to Bridgewater because other town halls were closed due to the pandemic. Marissa Jerrier and Christopher Bradshaw got married in May in front of the Academy building, and you can see immediate family members were in attendance for the ceremony. And Marissa might have summed it up best telling the Enterprise, "With this pandemic, you hear on the radio, TV, and social media all the time that right now is uncertain times, so we never know when forever really ends. But we knew we wanted to spend forever together." And the town clerk tells me that couples from Gardner, Fitchburg, and Worcester have come to her to apply for marriage licenses. The process to make Bridgewater a brighter community has begun. The town recently awarded a project to replace the streetlights in the community to Tanko Lighting. The funds are being utilized through rebates by National Grid and funding from the state's Green Communities program. The new streetlights that will be installed will be LED, which will reduce the town's energy use and make the streets in town brighter for a smaller cost. The project is expected to be completed later on this summer. There were a couple of notable cancellations to annual summertime traditions here in town. Music Alley, which is located next to the Town Hall in the Common, announced that the performances for the month of June have been canceled, but they do have hopes of returning later on in the summer. Now, while the performances won't be happening in person, there will be virtual performances that you can watch at home. For more on the performers, you can visit Music Alley's Facebook page, Bridgewater Music Alley. The 4th of July will be changed from what we are accustomed to. The annual parade and fireworks won't be taking place in person this year, but there is still an opportunity for you to take part and win a prize as well. Jeff Fowler has more.
COVID-19 concerns forced the cancellation of Bridgewater's annual 4th of July spectacular, but the celebration will go on as the committee partners with BTV to bring you a virtual Independence celebration. And we need you, the community, to star in the show. We are seeking patriotic performances, including the national anthem, to be emailed to jfowler@btvaccess.com. The committee is also sponsoring a home decorating contest, and the homeowners with the top 3 displays will share a pool of $400 worth of gift cards featuring Bridgewater businesses. Once you decorate your home, take a pic or video and email jfowler@btvaccess.com and buzzcurl@comcast.net. Images should be submitted by June 20th. Winners will be announced on the 4th of July. The committee will also be selling a 2020 t-shirt with a little humor, and proceeds will benefit the 2021 display. You can get more info by visiting the Bridgewater 4th of July Facebook page, bridgewaterma4th.com, or by calling Lisa Curley at 774-259-9173. I'm Jeff Fowler for the Bridgewater Review.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Coming up next month, we'll have a special of some of the content that you just heard about, as well as look back at some of the past 4th of July celebrations that we've had here in Bridgewater. It's been nearly 3 months since people have been strongly encouraged to stay at home, and while many are working from home, there is also social media-driven content that has passed the time. With a recap of some of those ways, here's Mary Evers.
With all of us stuck at home, social media has been more present in our lives than ever. With the excess of time spent online, the world has been interested in many of the same topics. It all started with Tiger King. At the beginning of the quarantine, the world was introduced to Joe Exotic, an eccentric private zoo owner, and his rival, the so-called animal rights activist Carole Baskin. Since the series premiered on Netflix, the world has been enthralled in the story and the rumors that Baskin had her husband killed and fed him to one of her tigers. Now it's one of the most popular memes online. If there's ever been anything that has brought this country together, it's been the mutual agreement that Carole Baskin did in fact kill her husband. Another thing that has been keeping us all occupied is TikTok. Though the app has been around for a while and has been popular, with everyone stuck inside, making them has become a great way to pass your time. Whether it's family bonding, learning different dances, or trying to express how crazy quarantine is making you feel, people have come up with many clever ideas. Closer to home, two BR teams did an excellent job coming up with their own ideas. Tiger King isn't the only documentary that has enthralled many people online. The ESPN documentary The Last Dance has become one of the most talked about television episodes on right now. With the absence of sports, many fans have taken a lot of pleasure in the series about Michael Jordan's basketball career. With its success, MJ has retaken the spot most talked about NBA player from LeBron James, something I think most of us are grateful for. For those of you that have missed the episodes and want to be included in the Twitter conversations, they are now being released on Netflix. Besides keeping ourselves entertained, social media has also made it possible to broadcast ways to help people during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's hard to go online without seeing something that is to raise money for relief efforts or something that's purpose is just to make people want to feel better during this time. For instance, the cast of Parks and Recreation got together to film a new episode of the show in order to raise money for Feeding America. The special ended up raising over $3 million. Massachusetts native and actor John Krasinski has been doing his part to keep spirits up by starting the Some Good News channel on YouTube. In the weekly episodes, he reunited the original Broadway cast of Hamilton to make a young fan's day better, treated Boston nurses to a day out at Fenway Park and season tickets to the Red Sox, hosted proms and graduations, and lastly reunited his castmates from The Office to help save a wedding for superfans of the show. His initial goal to make people feel better during all these times has certainly exceeded his expectations. Lastly, the company Fanatics has started the All-In Challenge. This has brought together many athletes, actors, singers, and companies to donate material goods and sometimes even their own time in order to raise money to provide food for those in need because of the pandemic. Some prizes that you've been able to bid on include golf with Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson, attending a movie premiere with Chris Hemsworth, getting eaten by a dinosaur in the next Jurassic World movie, or Bob Kraft's championship ring from Super Bowl 51. One of the auctions that has gained the most attention is a chance to watch Monday Night Football with the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Unfortunately for Goodell, the winner of that auction was Barstool President Dave Portnoy, who has had some clear issues within the past. As of right now, the challenge has raised over $55 million. As much as we say that social media can be a bad thing, right now we need it more than ever. It has been one of the only ways that we've been able to stay connected with those that we care about during this time. Is there something on social media that has helped you get through these times? Be sure to share it with us. What is helping you could help others as well. For Bridgewater Review, I'm Mary Evers.
Coming up next, high school students didn't walk across the stage, but they did still have a graduation ceremony to remember. We'll have highlights of that, and in honor of graduation, we'll have a flashback address from a familiar face here on BTV.
Dear God.
How long have we been married there?
For 76 years.
He was kind and generous to me before we married, and he was kind and generous to me all these years that we have been married. We decided on Meals on Wheels because at my age, I was getting to the point where I couldn't do all the things that I had been able to do.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
Welcome back to the program. As many high schools have done for their graduations, Bridgewater Rainham's high school graduation went virtual. Superintendent Derek Swenson, Principal Angela Watson, and others around the district, including students, collaborated on a graduation ceremony that nobody will soon forget.
We need to talk about graduation.
The class of 2020.
Class of 2020. Best class ever.
You know it.
What do you think?
I know what I think. I will be back with you in about 10-15 minutes. We love you, class of 2020. Let's go! This suit fit much better in March.
It was a funny start to the 2020 BR graduation, which for the first time ever was done virtually. Students, staff, and members of the BR administration submitted their speeches from their offices and houses. Although students didn't have a chance to walk onto the football field at the high school with pomp and circumstance playing, they worked hard to get to this point, something that salutatorian Madison Thomas didn't want her classmates to forget.
Our class has worked extremely hard to get to this moment, and even though it is not exactly what we pictured, we still deserve to be celebrated for our strength and perseverance. I know these times have been trying, but we are going to get through this and come out on the other side stronger than ever. Although many of us may never see each other again, we will always remember BR as the place that taught us who we are and who we want to be.
Through 12 years, there are things that students can't take for granted. Senior Class President Benjamin Wachowski brought that up during his address to the class of 2020.
And I spent so much time thinking of graduation and never really took in all the good that came from being at school. School was always more than regurgitating information we didn't always want to learn. It was about making lifelong friendships, failing, then learning from that failure. A random scream of what sounded like bloody murder in the hallway, and brightening someone's day. Those are the things I wish I consciously thought more about, because the truth is, we will never get those high school experiences again. My point is, make the most of your time that you have, and make sure you aren't taking it for granted. Live your life with fulfillment.
BR Superintendent Derek Swenson reached out to the senior class, and he was proud that this year's group of students carried themselves with dignity during such a difficult time in the world.
Sacrifice comes in many forms. We are cognizant of the fact that members of the class of 2020 have unfairly foregone various rites of passage that transpire throughout one's senior year. Despite this unfortunate state of affairs, you have all carried yourself with the utmost dignity and grace, never complaining nor seeking pity, but rather persistently demonstrating a positive attitude and outlook and working collaboratively to brainstorm for ideas and events that would continue to unify you as the amazing class in which you are, the class of 2020.
Mr. Swenson had parting words for the graduating class. Find your sense of self and be your own person. Continue to be great people. Always hustle and compete. And as you begin to focus upon where you are going, never lose sight from where you are from. For the first time, a member of the faculty made an address to the students, and this year the students selected Donald Burke. During his speech, Mr. Burke reminded the class of some of the things they took from the school, but perhaps more importantly, one thing they didn't.
Throughout your years at BR, you have learned so many great things. All your teachers have filled your minds with great knowledge, with important information, and hopefully with the ability to think critically. One thing we have not given you, have not taught you, is wisdom. No school can provide that. No teacher can teach that. To gain wisdom, you are on your own. Your life will teach you wisdom. The life you lead will bring you to wisdom.
While this was the end of the journey for hundreds of BR students, this also marks the end for some staff members, and one of those members was Mr. Burke.
And even I need to say goodbye to you. I too need to say goodbye to BR. I too need to say goodbye to 45 years of being a teacher as I retire. I have been so lucky to have done something that I love and still love these 45 years. And so lucky to have taught all the wonderful students like the class 2020 who have entered my classroom.
After each student was recognized, there were messages sent from teachers and faculty, but Principal Angela Watson also had a message for the class of 2020.
To the graduating seniors, you are an amazingly strong and resilient group of young men and women. These past 4 years have flown by, and it has been my honor to serve as your principal. On behalf of the entire BR community, we congratulate you. This is not goodbye, my friends. Until we see each other again, Remember, you are forever loved, and we will forever be proud of you.
And a reminder, you can watch replays of graduation on demand, and you can also download a copy of graduation for yourself. Log on to btvaccess.com. While some of the traditions high school seniors are used to didn't happen, there were some that did, including the cap and gown pickup. Superintendent Derek Swenson, along with administrators from around the district, were on hand, as was our cameraman by Tony Esposito at the high school, and those that went on camera had a message for the students. They are missed, and everyone around the high school can't wait to see them at some point in the future.
Hey, class of 2020, it's Miss Watson. I'm here with Superintendent Swenson. We're handing out caps and gowns. It's rainy, but we're not going to let any rain ruin this parade. We love you guys. We miss you. We wish you all the best. We will see you again. Trust me.
It's really fun to see all of your eyes and occasionally the top of a nose. I hope to see you soon. Love you guys.
Here handing out NHS cords. I'm glad I get to see all of you. Miss you all. Can't wait to see you again, hopefully this summer.
Horns were honking through the streets of Bridgewater and Rainham this past Saturday. Members of the senior class held a parade with signs of support from residents in Bridgewater and Rainham to a class that has had many traditions taken away, but this one stood strong. The group was in more than 90 vehicles and received help from the police departments in both Bridgewater and Rainham navigating through the streets. We have more video shot by Tony Esposito on our Facebook page and is also available with an option for download on our website, btvaccess.com. Shortly after the parade, one of the seniors that organized the event, Ryan Morrison, posted on the Bridgewater residents page that it was great to see everyone on the parade route cheering the seniors on and thank the two community police departments and the state police for helping make the day a success. We're going to shift our attention now to the university, where hundreds of BSU students were supposed to walk across the stage, but given the pandemic affecting many large-scale celebrations, the undergraduate and graduate commencement ceremonies were called off. BSU President Fred Clark talked to the new graduates via a YouTube video in front of the familiar banners at Boynton Quad, a place where many grads walk across the stage preparing for the next stage of their lives.
Believe me, our entire campus community is eager to embrace you one at a time. Celebrate your accomplishments, shake your hand, or maybe it's a fist bump or an elbow bump or a toe tap, really whatever's safest at the time. So until we see you again at your commencement ceremony, and on behalf of the entire faculty and staff here at BSU, I want to wish you a heartfelt farewell, very best wishes as you go forth into the world, and to welcome you as a BSU alumni. Your time on campus was defined by wonderful professors who taught, mentored, and guided you. Stay in touch with them. They will be thrilled to hear how you are doing and will be your teachers for life. Your time on campus was defined by the countless friends you have met. I think you will find, as I did, that the friends who are with you now will be with you for many tomorrows. Through ups and downs, they will be your confidants and companions. Your time on campus was defined by how you have grown during your time at Bridgewater. Remember who you were when you first set foot on this campus and see how you have grown as a person now that you are ready for that next phase of your journey.
Now, a few days before that video was posted, President Clark reached out to the returning students set to return in the fall. In that message, he said that there were 33 people testing positive for COVID-19, but after getting in touch with them, they are all doing fine. Clark also said that the university wasn't planning to be on campus later on this fall, but did add that it will be a different start to the school year than in years prior.
Of course, no one can be certain as to how rapidly our economy and society will reemerge from COVID-19, and we are preparing for all contingencies. In June, BSU will be announcing specific plans for a return to campus.
And the president added that a safe return task force is being created that's being made up of students and staff. They will be charged with creating a safe return to campus for both students and employees to the university. And finally on the program, we take a look back at a segment that we had back in 2017. With many graduation ceremonies, there are those addresses where a speaker will talk to students about what the future holds for them. So we tried to find one of those speakers that had the ability to reach out and change lives with one speech. Instead, we found Mark Grina to give a very unique address and also talked about some of the graduation movie scenes that we've seen in the past.
As I look over all your fresh-faced, wide-eyed faces today, so full of hopes and gusto and dreams, I get a little sad that this is the future. Graduation. That last step of academic structure before plummeting into the real world where it takes more than a hall pass or an ad drop slip to save yourself from the workaday world. Trust me, I know. It's that time of year when we throw huge parties celebrating our hard work, our achievements, our memories, and about how most of us will be spending the rest of our lives in debt while trying to pay back our school loans. When you head out into the world, young graduates, hold those degrees high. Be proud of all that studying and hard work you put in as you search desperately for a job that will barely keep you above water, knowing that idiots who can't put two sentences together are making millions of dollars off YouTube watchers simply for dropping their pants, singing like crap, or eating non-edible items. But really? Boy, Hollywood loves a good graduation scene, doesn't it? And there have certainly been some memorable ones. And since we're already in the commencement zone, I figured we could take a look back at some of those memorable graduation moments from the University of Cinema. Dear God. When we think graduation movies, we often think of the speeches, or if not the speech itself, maybe something that happens during the speech, or events that take place shortly after they've graduated. Some of these graduation scenes have been such dramatic powerhouses thanks to wonderful performances by then budding young talent such as Jennifer Jones in Since You Were Away, Hope Lang and Diane Varsi in Peyton Place, or the romantic chemistry between Ryan O'Neal and Ally McGraw in Love Story. Other memorable graduation moments were more humorous and or ironic or amusing, such as The Graduate, where Dustin Hoffman becomes involved in a relationship with an older woman named Mrs. Robinson, played by Anne Bancroft. A woman who seems sad in her aging persona, but don't forget, she once had a crush on the Elephant Man and was married to the jerk mayor from Jaws. Bill Murray leads an all-out military showstopper during the graduation scene in Stripes, back when Bill Murray had a sense of humor and was not lost in the translation of pretentious artsy nonsense. In Animal House, John Belushi and his Delta fraternity ransacked an uptight upper-class homecoming parade, which allows him and his cronies to actually graduate rather than be expelled for property damage and endangering lives, because it's both the movies and a comedy in the 70s where logic takes a back seat on both accounts because everyone was on a lot of drugs. And of course, who could forget that magical time of the 80s where graduation scenes, like everything else in the 80s, were just plain awesome. We had Rob Lowe, Andrew McCarthy, and Ali Sheedy leading the Brat Pack in St. Elmo's Fire, Ian Sky's speech in Say Anything, not to mention Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School, or Steve Guttenberg and his gang of law-enforcing lackeys in Police Academy. Heck, even the horror genre had a couple of graduation moments, most notably the touching father-daughter and her friend's graduation scene in the beginning of Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. Spoiler, Freddy kills them all. Bummer. Then you have speeches, those wonderful heartfelt speeches, many from movies both hit and miss. Reese Witherspoon delivered one in Legally Blonde. Emma Stone slowed down a superhero movie with an insightful yarn in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Then she was killed by a guy in a goblin costume. Yeah, they don't prep you for that in the midterms, do they? Bummer. Adam Sandler made a fool out of himself in Billy Madison after managing to graduate every grade school level up and through high school, and all us growing up in the 90s thought that was okay. To be fair, we all wore all flannel and listened to Korn. Robin Williams, after delivering his usual inspirational, heartbreaking speech in Jack, showed us his rear end in Patch Adams. And Tom Hanks solidified his taking of all the Oscars away from Pulp Fiction with his simple, aspiring scene in Forrest Gump, while Richard Dreyfuss's Mr. Holland's Opus not only sparked a great graduation scene with Olympia Dukakis and Alicia Witt, but for a brief period helped make all us high school band geeks pretty cool and for jocks to stop beating us up. Unless you went to my school. Heck, Even Twilight managed to take a break from the sparkling vampires and the constant gaping mouth expression Kristen Stewart wore in order to deliver us a graduation speech, which had nothing to do with vampires or werewolves, and sadly was probably the most interesting part of any of those movies. All in all, it's amazing where you may find a graduation moment. They can turn up anywhere, be it superhero films, slasher films, tearjerkers, slapstick comedies, those late night movies on Cinemax, you know, the ones that are on at 2 o'clock in the morning. What? And it looks like I'm out of time and I have just been fired, which is odd because they're not paying me, but nevertheless, I am outraged. So, to your graduates, I conclude with this. Look to the skies. Look to the future. Look in the parking lot, for I dropped my car keys somewhere, and remember some inspirational words that someone may have once told you. This is ex-professor of ideology Mark Macrina saying, Carpe diem, oh captain, my captain, nanu, nanu. And to that viewer who thinks he knows my life better than I do, know this, sir, I have a wife and wonderful kids to go home to, and the fact that you're contemplating this in your spare time scares me. But thank you for watching regardless.
All right, well, that was something. Kind of makes you wonder why he hasn't been on in 3 years. But nonetheless, in all seriousness, congratulations to all the graduates of 2020, and we thank all of you for watching this edition of the program. I'm John Love.